This episode of the Rotary Voices podcast is brought to you by Archaeological Paths. Explore Egypt with renowned archaeologists. Visit www.archaeologicalpaths.com for more information.
From Rotary Magazine, this is the Rotary Voices podcast. I'm Linda Yu. A silver tsunami of Alzheimer's is coming as baby boomers age. In fact, the Alzheimer's Association projects 13 million people will have some form of dementia by the year 2050. Other medical experts think that number could be even higher. Some years ago, a nonprofit inspired by a Rotarian and supported now by many Rotary clubs around the world was formed, called Music Mends Minds. I had the opportunity recently to meet the woman who started it. She won't stop until the whole world believes music is medicine for our brains. Music inspires. Music sets a mood. Music might tell us a story. Music can make us laugh. Or cry. But now, more and more, scientists, doctors, and caretakers of dementia patients are finding music is medicine. I found out for myself when I walked into the sanctuary of the historic Brentwood Presbyterian Church in Los Angeles, California. It was a Thursday afternoon, a warm, clear day made even more cheerful by the rays of sun flooding into the church sanctuary. In this sanctuary is a meeting of the Fifth Dementia, a band of elderly patients with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and other forms of dementia, most of whom still chuckle at the name they've given themselves. Actually, this was a visit prompted by a previous Rotary Magazine article from March of 2020. I happen to have been the narrator of that article for the magazine's digital version. Since I was in Los Angeles recently, I wanted to see for myself why I've been hearing more and more about how music is medicine. What I first encountered in this Fifth Dementia band session was two young guitar-playing musicians who volunteer their time to play rock and roll songs of the 60s. Today, like all of their sessions, there is singing and dancing. Very quickly, I was caught up in the joy everyone here seemed to feel every Thursday afternoon. The regulars, along with some newcomers, all of them in their 60s up through their 90s, walked in slowly, some with their caregivers, and sat down. Pretty soon, there were about 50 in the church. After listening to some Beatles, Beach Boys, and Johnny Cash songs, they began to stand up, then worked their way into the main aisle of the sanctuary or to the front, singing and then dancing like they were teenagers. What's the secret? What causes these participants to, as they put it, come alive again? It's a particular kind of muscle memory created when there was something important and special to you in your earlier life.
The music for which you have muscle memory in terms of just responding to it automatically is the music that you grew up with between like 12 years old and maybe 25 years old. That's where you have the emotional bond with the music.
That's Dr. Rudy Tanzi, who has spent a lifetime studying the causes and treatments of Alzheimer's disease. Now professor of neurology at Harvard University and director of the Center for Brain Health at Massachusetts General Hospital. Plus, he has worked with Alzheimer's Dementia Rotary Action Group. For this age group, the muscle memory music is oldies. It cuts through the fog of dementia, giving them the enjoyment they felt when they were 16 years old.
More people need to know that music is really one of the best gifts you can give to an Alzheimer's patient, no matter what stage they're in.
Carol Rosenstein, who became a member of the Rotary Club of Westwood Village in Los Angeles, found that out more than a decade ago. She'd been taking care of her husband, Erwin, who'd had a successful career as a lawyer, before Parkinson's slowly took him away from her, his medication leaving him with what Carol called his Parkinson's vacant stare. One day, Erwin shuffled across their living room to the piano he once played and did something that changed their lives.
Starting out, draped over the keys like a wet noodle. And within 5 to 10 to 15 minutes, I would see this wet noodle resurrect and become a dry noodle. And he was engaged again and connected to his environment.
Carol asked Irwin's neurologist if he knew why this happened.
He responded and he said, "Carol, you're watching the power of music changing brain chemistry."
If Carol Rosenstein walked into your life this minute, you'd understand perfectly what happened next. Carol's exuberant energy and infectious laugh precede her, and when she appears, her red hair, today topped with a leopard print newsboy cap, a matching scarf flung around her neck, you know this is someone who makes things happen. What happened was Carol began contacting doctors, found caregivers and their patients, arranged to meet in a high school music room, and 30 people showed up at the first meeting. One person with Alzheimer's walked over to the piano. A man with Parkinson's found himself seated at the drums. Husband Irwin picked up a saxophone like one he had played in college. And a retired history professor named Sam, who now had Alzheimer's and could no longer speak, pulled a harmonica from his pocket.
These 4 souls broke out of the crowd and they saw music and they made a beeline for the music. They unconsciously knew why they were there, and they took the steps necessary to coalesce as a group of 4 strangers. Sam did not speak. He was already aphasic, and that's why he needed his harmonica. And his story that came forth after that was that if anyone asked Sam a question, and remember, he was a retired history professor, so he knew how to inform and connect with people. He'd pull out his harmonica because he didn't have the wherewithal to respond in the traditional language skill. And so he would chime in with a song on his harmonica and engage the stranger, who never went forth with a conversation because Sam took over. And Sam controlled the conversation, making music, by blowing and making music.
Eventually, as they continued to meet, they found their way to play together some of Irwin's favorites: Moon River, Love Me Tender, and yes, Blue Suede Shoes. And the Fifth Dementia Band was born. That was 10 years ago. As time went by, those who didn't play an instrument in their youth joined in with their singing voices. Others began using maracas, tambourines, and percussion instruments that were provided. Carol decided this would be her new life work and formally created the nonprofit Music Mends Minds. Music brought Irwin back to Carol until the day he died. At today's session in the Brentwood Presbyterian Church, a slender, handsome man with graying hair was called to the stage in the church sanctuary. For those who had heard him before and remembered, there were expectant looks of anticipation. For someone like me, hearing Howard Hill play the piano for the first time, the first chords he played took my breath away. Howard Hill was a piano prodigy, performing professionally beginning at the age of 4. He went on to a life career traveling the world, playing songs and themes from musicals and movies. He's had Alzheimer's for years, though he no longer remembers for how long. However, he has not forgotten the music that is in his muscle memory, music he once shared with audiences and wants to keep on sharing. Does the act of coming up and knowing that when you put your fingers down, it's still going to work and the beautiful music will come out?
I find myself very happy because I know that because of what I've been doing, that it changes some other people's lives. It gives them some hope.
2 other members of the Fifth Dementia believe that music not only mended their minds, it mended their hearts. Carol Jean Hicks was very sad when she came to her first fifth dementia session. She had been diagnosed and her life was in upheaval.
My husband, we were just breaking up because he did not want to take care of me with Parkinson's disease.
Rudy Hornish had also been diagnosed and had lost his wife to illness. He had been asked to play the piano for the fifth dementia, something he could remember to do beautifully since he'd been playing since childhood.
That's how I met this lovely creature, this beautiful, lovely person who's my new best friend. And for a long time, I did not have the courage to introduce myself to you. And finally, I did. I finally said, well, if she really wants to hang out with an 85-year-old, that's her choice.
And she did.
And she did, and we've been together ever since, and we are madly in love.
RoyalEgypt.com presents Explore Egypt on a tour like no other and gain exclusive VIP access to Egypt's greatest wonders. Take a VIP tour of the Grand Egyptian Museum, the largest archaeological museum in the world, with one of its directors. Enjoy a private visit to the Great Pyramid of Khufu, the last of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, and access hidden chambers that are closed to the public. Stand between the paws of the Great Sphinx instead of seeing it from a distant viewing platform. Explore the most awe-inspiring wonders of the ancient world, temples in Luxor, the Valley of the Kings, and King Tut's tomb outside the regular hours for a more intimate and crowd-free experience. Don't miss your chance to join this once-in-a-lifetime journey. Book your tour now at RoyalEgypt.com.
One of the 2 young musicians who play guitar and lead the band every week is Spencer Lehman, who has been there ever since he first encountered the fifth dementia as a middle school music student. This is why he so deeply believes in music men's minds.
It seems clear to me that if they didn't have this means of expression and communication, the pace at which you feel disconnected from your peers and from humanity at large, the pace at which you feel your faculties escaping you and that you can't really contribute anything to the people around you, I can only imagine how scary that feeling is.
For Spencer, this is why he has been a weekly volunteer for 10 years. So, how did Rotary become so involved? Carol loves to tell the story. A member of the Rotary Club of Vashon Island in Washington State saw a TV report many years ago about music men's minds. Amy flew to Los Angeles to meet the fifth dementia in person.
I saw her laughing, I saw her crying, I saw her dancing, and she was blown away by what she was seeing. They greeted us goodbye and left, and that was the end of that day. A while later, I got a call from Amy, and she said, guess what? We're going to start the Island Rockers, a senior group on Vashon Island in the image of the Fifth Dementia Band. And my Rotary Club has stepped up to say that they will sponsor the Island Rockers.
So I asked Carol, when did she realize she could join Rotary? And with the already established Alzheimer's Dementia Action Group, together they could help spread the news that music is medicine.
It was not that long after I saw that there was a need for me to put my eggs in the Rotary basket, because this was part of my dream, to be able to have 1.2 million boots on the ground in 135,000 clubs, do exactly what the club had offered us in the way of the Island Rockers. We could propagate like bunnies globally, because Rotary goes to over 200 countries.
The Troublemakers is another music men's minds band. It's supported by the Beverly Hills Rotary Club. This one meets at Roxbury Park in Beverly Hills, where the park's 11 acres provide a respite from the busy rush of the city. Across its grassy expanse, toddlers, their parents, and some nannies run, play, and laugh, while a Tai Chi class is balancing its slow, graceful movements in another section of the park. Joggers and walkers circle the Roxbury along a running track, while the thump, thump, and dribble, dribble of basketballs echo next to the expansive park building. Inside, there's the aroma of lunch being served to seniors in a dining room, while the steady thwack of ping pong balls set a rhythm of games being played in another. In the park building's largest room, there's music. Watching the 50 or so people who gather every Tuesday in this room, I think about Dr. Tanzi's explanation of why science understands music is medicine.
The oldest part of the brain is in the back of your brain, the reptilian brain, your brain stem. It's all your instincts. You don't have to remember to want food or when you're born to seek your mother's breast for milk. This is instinctive genetic memory. And that part of the brain evolutionarily goes all the way back to reptiles. It's 400 million years old. I got amazing emails. Like, I remember someone said, hey, my dad, bedridden, hadn't spoken in a month, and we took Spark Memories Radio in there, and the song Poison by Peggy Lee came on. All of a sudden, his eyes lit up. He sat up in bed and started telling way too much of a detailed story about his prom night and what he did in his red pickup truck. But then the next oldest part of the brain is the limbic system. That's where you have emotion. Your first memories you ever form are pleasure and pain. When you experience pleasure, this creates desire, right? The memory of pleasure. When you experience pain, this creates a fear, the memory of pain. So that part of the brain, called the hippocampus, is closely linked to a part of the brain that also encodes fear or encodes emotion, the amygdala. And connected to that is music memory. And music memory can trigger the limbic system, which is otherwise being decimated and deteriorated by Alzheimer's disease pathology. So you may have someone in the later stages who's having a tough time with short-term memory or putting the world into context. But when that same part of the brain, I could say through the back door, is stimulated by music, then you can activate what's there. You can activate the nerve cells that are there, and the person can become present again. So this is the power of music memory. And what's remarkable is that as Alzheimer's spreads through the brain from one region to the other, music memory is not touched.
Dr. Tanzi adds, the type of music that helps the patient with their memory often depends on when they grew up.
If you have a patient in the 80s, you might be some 50s bebop and jazz, or it might be 60s, really like rock around the clock. And then it goes on and on. So if somebody in the 70s, you might do the Beatles, or Billy Joel, or the band I play with now and then, Aerosmith, when they had their hits.
You heard that right. Dr. Tanzi is not only one of the country's leading experts on the causes and treatments of Alzheimer's, he's an author, composer, and a keyboard player who often collaborated with the band Aerosmith and even played keyboard on one of their albums. So when it comes to the medicine of music, I'll take his word for it.
Music is medicine that doesn't cure you, but it certainly treats the symptoms, whether it's a psychological or psychiatric symptom of agitation and frustration and calming a patient down, or whether it's stimulating a patient to wake up who's been unresponsive or vegetative for a period of time.
Carol Rosenstein, in her layman's thinking, is even more specific, describing what she calls the pharmacist in our own brains.
I can tell you that because of music stimulation in our brains, we have our own pharmacists on duty 24/7 in our brains. And when these pharmacists hear making music coming into their ears, they go immediately to the happy chemicals in the pharmacy in our brain and release these happy chemicals into our bloodstreams.
Word has spread among Rotary clubs, with more and more forming their own Music Men's Minds bands. In addition to the 12 bands around California Rotary clubs, there are 4 in Washington State, 4 in New Jersey. Bands have now started in Connecticut and New York. Internationally, Music Men's Minds has inspired Rotary clubs in the United Kingdom, Canada, the Philippines, and Rwanda to start their own bands. And there's now interest coming from Rotary clubs in Japan as well. Dr. Tanzi taught me something new. If you worry that you don't have enough muscle memory, music in your brain, remember that each time you learn something new, it's healthy exercise for your brain.
There was the old adage, neurons to fire together, wire together. If you're wiring together, you're creating new pathways in the brain, new synapses, new neural networks that or otherwise being decimated by some neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's disease. So in that regard, you can consider it like exercise for the brain. And every time you make new synapses, it's like money in the bank. It's cognitive reserve. And the more synapses you make every day, the more you can lose as you get older without losing it. So learning new things is huge.
By the way, some others we haven't mentioned yet who are helped by Music Mends Minds, the caregivers. Tracy Denisi has been a caregiver for 15 years. She talks about how music removes some of the stress from her job and smiles as she remembers, with fondness, going to the Troublemakers sessions with a patient, Lenny.
She had a very incredible personality, and a lot of people experience agitation with dementia, and music could just change things on a dime. So I am one who's known to break into song just randomly, and that was something that really helped me with her when she'd become agitated or fearful. And just singing with a group of people was so healing. We were on a high for a week until we came back the next week. It was amazing. A lovely thing is, my grandmother used to sing a song from Guys and Dolls to me. I love you, a bushel and a peck, a bushel and a peck. And Lenny's mother used to sing that to her. And so throughout her decline, that was a constant. We would sing that to her on a daily basis, and it got us through a lot of rough spots.
On Lenny's deathbed, Tracy believes she saw a smile because this is what Tracy sang.
I love you, a bushel and a peck, a bushel and a peck, and a hug around the neck, a hug around the neck, and a barrel and a heap, a barrel and a heap, and I'm talking in my sleep about you.
Everyone in our world today needs a dose of music medicine. We have now, with all of the scientific community backing, we can truly use the term music medicine. And with the state of affairs in our world today, with the stress and the anxiety and the loss that everybody is experiencing, why not give everyone a dose of music medicine? It is so inexpensive to deliver, never fails us, and can make everybody bring joy back into their lives.
If you want to see, hear, and experience the joy at some of these band sessions, go to musicmendsminds.org. There you will see how to stream some of the band sessions, as well as find how to donate to support the bands. This episode of Rotary Voices was written by Linda Yu. Original music by Yu-Soo Kim. Produced by Wilson Toy and J.P. Swenson. If you enjoyed this show, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and share it with your friends.